Hello, Pauper fans, and Mathonical are joining me for a bonus round with Disciple Affinity. It's a round I particularly liked, and I think showcases some of the interesting ways you can play this deck. So, our opening hand is a fantastic one. Prophetic Prism into double Thoughtcast means we're going to be drawing all of the cards. And alright, so they start off on a blue-black land, but something also to take note of is they've got 71 cards in their library currently. And when you add everything up, they're playing 79 cards, which is probably one of the teaching decks that just wants to win with just sheer number of cards. So we do have to keep that in mind when we're going for the win. So far, we're just doing our thing where we're drawing multiple cards. Our opponent does end up counterspelling the Thoughtcast, probably worried about the amount of cards total. We're still going to run another one out at some point, but we'll start off with some Prophetic Prism, go for the Thoughtcast, and that resolves. Okay. Get the Myr Enforcer out. Chances are it'll get removed at some point. And there indeed is the teachings. So they did get themselves another counterspell. They're likely worried about some kind of Fling combo, which does make sense. And let's see, we're just kind of doing our own thing. Death Rattle, that's an interesting card you don't see very often, but definitely a good way of answering our Myr Enforcer. At this point, we really just got to find ourselves in a Atog, and if we do, we might be in a pretty good position. Well, sure enough, here it is. I would prefer to have a bit more interaction or try and get them tapped a little bit lower, if possible. Just running the Atog out here, if they have two counter spells, we might just lose on the spot. So, since they're missing land drops, they definitely have a hand full of action. We definitely want to find something else to go with this. Second Atog would be ideal, or if anything that we play would cause them to tap out a bit would be great. Alright, so they're starting to hit some land drops. Alright, we'll keep cycling. We're going to keep on digging. Still not finding another way of doing this. We can continue to wait. We're not in a huge rush since they're not putting any pressure on us other than our library. Since they did tap out a little bit for the Thoughtcast, we're going to go ahead and try and get this Atog to resolve here. And this will work as long as they don't have a prohibit. And okay, so if they're going for the Doomblade, we've got the win. I guess outside the one counterspell, they didn't have much interaction. Well, they had counterspell plus exclude, which normally might be enough, but thankfully we had our one of Dispel in hand, and we're able to find a small opening. And that's the thing to do when you're playing against control. You have to be patient. Of course, different types of control mean different ways of playing, but against tap or full-on counter magic control, this is the ideal way to play. So jumping on over to the sideboard, we have many tools that we can bring in against a control deck like this. So taking a quick look at the sideboard, we've got the 3 Pyroblast and Dispel to bring in, as well as Reaping the Graves. And what we're going to take out are the Myr Enforcers and Etherium Sculptor. They've got plenty of removal, so these are essentially going to be, by removing all of them, it turns a lot of the removal into dead cards. We only want to fight over their counter magic and try and overwhelm them on a critical turn. So with that game plan, let's take a look at our opening hand. And this hand is great. It's got all our colors with the Prophetic Prism, and we've got 2 of the cards we really want to see in this matchup. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. And here we go. We're going to play out some of our early creatures just to get them, like, prevent them from drawing early by having to answer our spells. This gives us winning chances if we end up trying to combo off early. If they're drawing tons of cards early, they get to sculpt the perfect hand to interact with anything we have. On that turn, looking back, it may have been a good idea to play the Lonely Sandbar. The reason being, like, I realized that after playing the Great Furnace, if we played the Lonely Sandbar, we would then have 5 mana available by playing the Great Furnace, which would give us enough for a Atog, Dispel, plus a Fling. Although that only matters if we draw a Fling. By playing the Great Furnace, it allows us to cycle the Lonely Sandbar and draw into additional cards, and so over a much longer game, I think this is the better play. Just wanted to consider both options. So we're going to go ahead and cycle, Ichor Wellspring, okay, good. Oh, and then we end up drawing into the Fling. Well, since it was 2 cards down, we wouldn't have drawn it anyways, and we don't want to go for it because they definitely have some sort of counter magic up. It's possible we may have wanted to play the Atog and then Dispel just an Exclude and make them have the removal, but I think this is fine, just trying to hold for an additional mana source, which we draw there. So here we're going to go for the Atog. They do go for the Exclude, which we'll try and Dispel, and they have the Dispel as well. Alright, so they do get to draw their extra card there. We do have the Reaping the Graves, so what we want to do is just find some turn where a lot of spells have been cast and try and get back our stuff. Prophetic Prism is fine. At this point, since we tried to go for an early combo and it didn't pan out, unless they show us some sort of large win condition, I think our game plan is going to have to shift into drawing a lot of cards and just kind of building up to a critical turn. There you'll notice, even though I had 3 triggers, I did target the Atog twice. I didn't want the Atog targeting one to get countered and not get the Atog back. I'd much rather guarantee having a Atog than just having a random Etherium Sculptor at this point. Here they're going to go for killing our Disciple. I don't mind too much. I'm just going to use this opportunity to cycle, just to get a little bit of damage in, and it's some cycling I wanted to do anyways. Another Disciple, that's fine. We're going to start just holding cards in hand to try and build towards a critical turn. Well, Serrated Arrows means our Disciples aren't going to be that great in the long run. Not much we can do there. And so what we want to do from this point on is not crack our cycling artifacts. The reason being, we want to try and overwhelm them on a single turn. So our long game plan is to draw ourselves up to 7 cards, and then on the end of their turn, sack a bunch of artifacts to draw past that. That will give us the greatest chances of overwhelming them, and like our Disciples at this point are completely dead with those Serrated Arrows down, so no point in playing them out until we need them. Alright, just a little bit of draw-go action. And things are going pretty well from our standpoint. It doesn't look like they've got Evercard's Justice or a Curse to try and mill us out at this point. Those are the cards that would make us try and go a little bit quicker, but even at this point, things are looking pretty good. We currently have +3 cards available on the battlefield, and 3 Atogs. That's exactly where we want to be. Our opponent is trying to discard to hand size, and that is also quite good. Alright, we've got more draw going on. If we ever get past hand size, we're going to start playing some cards. It will force them to cast something, which is fine. Although here they just go for Serrated Arrow kill, no worries there. Pyroblast, perfect. We're starting to get the cards we need. Another Fling. I'm going to try and play an Atog, seeing what they're going to do about it, and it turns out they end up going for the Hydroblast, which is great news for us. So we're down to 19 cards in library. We'd be able to draw 4 at any point, so we're just going to keep waiting a little bit longer. We would really like to see a couple more Pyroblasts to really be able to go off. An additional Mana Rock, that's perfect. Our opponent continues to discard to hand size. So at this point we're going for a couple Thoughtcasts. We're really digging into our deck. We're going to play one of the Atogs there just to see what they're going to do. They do go for the counter. And at this point, with 10 cards left in our library and we've got 5 redraws here, plus 1 draw on our turn, it's looking pretty tempting. So what we're going to do is we're going to crack all of these, draw up past our maximum hand size, and try and go for one big combo turn. Since we also drew into the Lonely Sandbar, we got a little bit deeper. We've got a Prophetic Prism to dig one deeper again. Here I ended up playing the Disciple as a test spell to see what our opponent would do. My assumption was that they're just going to let it resolve and kill it with Serrated Arrows, and I wasn't going to be able to get any effects until the third one. But it turns out they wanted to play the Exclude right away, try and get their card draw going. So I don't mind there. They may also be worried about some way we have of sacrificing our artifacts. Although at 37 life, I think they should be able to let one resolve. But in any case, we're going to keep going for that. And they end up countering all 3 of them. That's really good news for us. It means our chances of resolving the Atog is looking a lot better. We're going to start fighting over the first one just to see how committed they are to letting one resolve, because if we let the first one resolve, we would then have many more card draw and be able to find our last Dispel and things like that with the Wellsprings. We end up letting that one go after like a small little fight, and this is the one that we need to resolve, so we're going to go all in on this one. We did end up playing the Prophetic Prism because I realized we had enough mana to do so, and we did find the last Dispel. Thankfully though, it did end up resolving, and we're now able to just kind of go for the win at this point. We do have to be careful, of course, not to sack all of our Wellsprings, since that would draw us out of this game. And we still have plenty of artifacts to work with, so we're just going to go all in on this. Of course, floating enough mana to have both of our counterspells available, and it ends up being enough. So we just had to draw our entire deck, and which is exactly their win con, to win the game. Yep, I thought this was an ideal way to show the full playstyle of how you play against control with this deck. The whole idea is to build up your combo in hand with lots of counter magic and just kind of force it through on a turn where you feel like you can go for it. I do hope you've enjoyed this bonus round. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoy finding a few feature matches like this that just kind of stick out in my mind. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the wrap up.